All righty. We are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to, this is our first ever attempt at doing a live stream of Doomscroll. So hopefully we don't screw
and
it
the
up.
debates are starting, and here we are.
Yep, you guys are stuck with us. But we're doing something different. Since CNN is hosting the debate this first debate, they said pretty much anybody can live stream it, so everybody's doing it now. And looks like the live feed has started.
And after this, the next debate will actually just be a UFC fight between the two of them. And so we're really looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, although if you remember, Donald Trump actually, he said that as he was talking about a conversation he had with Dana White, and he said the UFC guy, and said that he wants to have unauthorized immigrants a fighting league where they will fight
yes
each other.
I do remember that.
And like he says so much nonsense that no one has any idea how much of what he's saying is real or not. But anyway, so it looks like the CNN live feed has started here, so we will go to that, and we'll jump in after they set the background rules here.
We'll moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience.
This is like Inception, CNN inside of PBS, inside of the Power Show.
On the right, coin toss determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate
How embarrassing that we even have to have a mute button for these people.
It will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements.
You're muted. I couldn't hear the beginning of that.
Oh, no, I just fixed it, yeah.
Or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Folks, how are you?
Pretty exciting music he's coming out to here. Very energetic.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Turn off those captions. Yeah, it's like so sleepy.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate.
No handshake.
With the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation.
I just have to say shout out to Jake Tapper for being so cute.
High. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
He looks terrified.
What I was left when I became president, and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. Pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach in your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to
look at Trump's expression. He looks like a monkey.
And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again.
They told me to be quiet.
Exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought on the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to.
I think that may be the drinking game, Scranton for Biden.
Honest to God, I don't give two fucks about Scranton.
It's so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination that I was left with in corporate greed is the reason why we're in this problem right now.
He's not really speaking to the question.
In a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people. To $15 for an insulin shot.
Listen, I'll give him that. Prescription drugs went down in some
Has to be
cases.
more than $200 for any.
Especially insulin.
But why is the price of housing is untenable? More than 50% of Americans can't afford rent.
All Americans. So
we need more housing.
So,
that's what he said. 2 million.
There's
more.
so much housing. There's
So we
so
need
much
more than
housing.
that.
It's
We have the
empty.
greatest economy in the history of our country. We
The worst.
have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us.
Wait,
I
he
was
said
amazed by how
They
good
were
things
amazed
were
by
under.
the worst.
And when we did, we
Yeah, that's
spent
what he said.
money
What the
necessary
hell?
so we wouldn't end up in the Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the
I
economy.
think
a
the
lot of
drinking
credit
game for
the
Trump is
military
the
and
likes of which.
no wars and so many other things.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates
That was
a
fake
disaster for our
and not
country.
real.
But other than that, we had given them back a
I love that
country where the stock
he's
market
blaming
actually was higher than
Fight
pre-COVID,
for
and nobody
COVID
thought that was
when
even
it started
possible.
under his
The only jobs
presidency.
he created are for illegal immigrants
And it
and
ended
bounce back
under
jobs.
Biden.
The bounce back from the COVID.
Yeah,
He has not done a
well,
good job. He's
Biden
done a poor
declared it
job, and
over, but
inflation's
that's something
killing
I
our
have beef
country.
with.
It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you, President Biden.
But COVID
Well,
is a
look, the
hoax.
greatest
though,
economy in
remember.
the world. He's the only
And
one
so
that thinks
Trump should
that.
take
I
credit
don't
for
know anybody else
the
that thinks
hoax.
he has the greatest economy in the world. And the fact of the matter is that we found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion.
He's nodding yes.
Larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something
Yep.
that was significant. And the
Trump has
military,
no answer for that.
when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about
Good
that.
for him.
When he was president, we
But
were
for
still
him,
finding
to be
ourselves in a
fair,
position
there was
where
COVID,
we
and
had
Biden's
the
handling of
notion that
Afghanistan was
we were
garbage.
this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this
Except he
decade,
ended it,
done
though.
any troops dying anywhere in the world.
In a really bad way.
President Trump,
Sure.
I want to follow up if I can. You
Am I
want
allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others.
This is
in
such a
alternatives to
stupid
China.
answer.
It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's
War
why we
rich.
had all the
Okay,
jobs.
Biden's taking a
And the
nap
jobs
now.
went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce
I
back
think
jobs.
he's
You can't
shaking
do
his
it.
head.
He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he
Yeah,
inherited
he's
almost
got
no inflation, and it stayed that way for
Yeah, I was
14
making a
Not
joke.
looking at the
and then it
stage.
blew up under
Yeah,
his leadership.
don't look at the
because they
stage
spent
like
money like a
that.
bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration
he's
in
writing.
history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most
With
embarrassing
power.
day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8
And
years,
they-
under both of
What
your
does that even mean?
the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a
I mean,
new
it was a mess,
nonpartisan
but he's
analysis,
not
President Trump,
getting
your
into
administration
specifics
because
approved
he has brain
$8.4
damage.
trillion in new debt.
Well,
so
also, it
far,
was mostly
Biden
Trump's
approved
plan. He
$4.3
had to
trillion
follow it.
in new
That was
debt.
the thing.
So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts
Oh,
that you
man.
signed into law are set to expire next
Their
year.
expressions.
You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about
And
any
even
other
after
country.
COVID was under
We spurred
Biden.
that tax was spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were
That's
bringing
not
back
true at all.
billions
He's just
back
making
into our
shit
country.
up.
The country was
The
growing
revenue
up.
did not go up.
and we were
It
ready
went
to start
down.
paying down debt. We're ready to start
Also,
using
trickle
the
down
liquid gold
economics
right
has
under our
been
feet,
disproven
the oil and
as a
gas right under
thing
our
that
feet.
works.
We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit
Have
with
ever
COVID.
seen
We did a
before.
lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We
Which
gave
are
him
fake.
everything
Looking
we
at
could.
him.
Remember,
Which are a
more
hoax,
people
hoax
died
according to
under his
Republicans.
administration,
And
even though we had
they're
largely
killing
fixed it.
people, the
More people
vaccines.
died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a
Yeah, because
disaster,
he was president
mandating it.
for longer.
The vaccine
Duh.
went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very
Yeah,
poor
because
job.
you
just
told
a
them
very
that it
poor
was
job.
bullshit.
And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country.
Right.
They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect
We're
the
no
United
longer
States
respected as a
anymore.
country
We're
because
like a
of
third
having
world
you as a
nation
president.
between weaponization
I know,
of
right?
his
That is,
election,
yeah,
trying to
the
go
idea
after
that
his political
anyone
opponent,
respects Donald
all
Trump.
of the things
Like,
he's
the
done,
guy
we've
is a
become like
total
a third world
doofus,
nation, and it's a shame. The
and
damage
it's
he's done to our
absurd, the idea
country.
that anyone
And
would
I'd love
respect
to
him.
ask him, and
You
will,
can't.
why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions
Okay,
to come
we're
into our
talking about the
country
budget,
and
and
destroy our
this has
country.
nothing to do with it.
President Trump, we will get to immigration
speaking of
later
mental
in this block.
institutions.
President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond. To the
Biden's
question
like,
about
what the
national
fuck?
debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where
Mark
they, in
Cuban's
fact,
the
pay
only good one.
2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise
I pay
$500
fucking
million,
33%
$1 trillion,
taxes.
I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat
He's
Medicare,
powering down.
Thank you,
Trump's
President
going to come
Biden.
after
President
him for
Trump.
stalling out.
He's right. He did
Yep.
beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people
This
are
asshole
coming
wants to
in.
get rid of
They're putting them
Medicaid
on Medicare. They're putting
or
them on
Medicare.
Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of
By
people coming in,
privatizing it the
they're
way
trying to put them on
Republicans want
Social
to.
Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no
I'm
longer
friends with a lot of
respected.
people.
They don't like
Yeah,
us.
Vladimir
We give
Putin.
them everything they want, and they
Kim
think we're
Jong-un.
stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to
I'm gonna get way too mad
overturn Roe v.
here.
Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade,
That's
and
not
everybody
complex.
wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats,
No.
Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did
Get
is
the fuck
I put
outta
three
here.
great Supreme Court justices.
And by the way, I'm
on
going to
the
put,
court, and they happened to vote in favor
if
of
you want to see a
taking
poll,
Roe v. Wade
other
and
countries,
moving it
people in
back
other
to the
countries
states. This
think
is
Trump
something that
is a
everybody
moron.
wanted.
They don't
trying to
approve.
hear.
Years ago or so, they started talking about how many
So
weeks and how many.
everybody
this and
check that
getting into
URL if
other
you want to
things.
see
But
the
every
poll.
legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states
Nobody
are
said
working
that
it out. If you look
at
at
all.
Ohio, it was a decision that
Nobody
was,
said
it was
that.
a-
And then what's the
end
point of
result
a
that was a
fucking
little bit more
country,
liberal than you would have thought.
one
Kansas, I would say
nation,
the same
if it's
thing.
just a bunch of states'
Texas
rights
is
on every
different.
subject?
Florida is different, but they're all making
Yep.
their own decisions
Well,
right now.
he just
And right
quotes
now,
Republicans
the
and it
states control it.
implies that that's
the vote
everybody
of the
else,
people.
even though
Like
Republicans are
Ronald
like
Reagan, I
20%
believe
Also,
of the
every
country.
single
I'm a
time
person
it's
that
been
believes.
put to a vote
And
by the
frankly,
people,
I think it's
every
important
single
to believe
time
in the
they've
exception. Some
preserved the
people you have to
right
follow
to an
your heart. Some
abortion.
people
Yeah.
don't believe in that.
Every
Yeah.
single
But I
time.
Yeah,
believe in the
Yeah,
exception
the idea
for
that they want to take
rape,
it back,
incest, and the
total
life
lie.
of the mother. I think it's
Nonsense.
very important. Some people don't follow your heart, but you have to get elected
Follow
also,
your heart.
and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected.
You're
The
the
problem
fucking
they
former
have is they're
president.
radical
You're running
because
for
they will
president.
take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after
And he
birth.
won't, and I
After
bet you
birth,
he
if
still
look
won't
at the
take
former governor of
Fucking
Virginia.
state a
He was
This
position.
willing
idea
to
of
do
like
this. He
9-month
said, "We'll put the
abortions,
baby
that's not
It's
aside,
that's
bullshit.
birth.
and
Yeah.
we'll determine what
It's
we
not
do
a
with
real
the baby,"
thing.
meaning we'll kill the baby.
No.
What happened is we brought it back
No
to the
woman
states.
is going to carry a
Countries
pregnancy
now
for 9
coming
months and be like,
together on
hey,
this
you know what?
issue.
I don't
It's
want
been
it
a
after
great
all.
Thank
You
you.
know, I've
President
changed my
Biden?
mind.
It's been a terrible thing.
It's been a great thing.
The fact
Wow.
is that the vast majority of
The
constitutional scholars
the best
supported Roe when it was
comment on
decided.
it ever was Pete
Supported Roe.
Buttigieg.
And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And listen
Thank
to the guy
you.
who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, have your
They're in the
and have
state
him
of
decide on
Georgia.
what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule.
No shit.
There's
Exactly.
so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was
People are
murdered.
having to move because of
He
this
went to the
asshole,
funeral.
Trump.
The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses,
By their in-laws.
brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women
Oh, wow.
murdered by the
Huh.
same people he
Trump-
allows to come across
Biden
our
was the one
border.
who ran over
We have a
first.
border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. Consider the most
Trump is
dangerous
going to
place
turn
anywhere in the
any
world.
topic
What is he
over
even
to
ta-
Opened it up,
immigration.
and these killers
He
are
has
coming
nothing
into
to
our
say
country,
about this topic.
and they are raping and
Nothing.
killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a
no,
very
he
liberal
won't take a
decision. In many
position.
cases, it's the opposite.
An
But they're
alleged
voting,
leader.
and it's bringing it back to the vote
He
of the
won't
people,
state
which is what
right now.
everybody wanted, including the founders, if they
That's a
knew
lie.
about this issue, which
All he
frankly,
does
they
is say
didn't.
that, what everyone
But they would
wanted.
have.
That's bullshit.
Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted
Lie.
it brought back. He wasn't
Lie.
able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many
This
presidents
is all he
had
can
tried to
say.
get
That's
it
all
back.
he can say.
I was the one to do it. And again, this
Many-
gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion,
Every legal
President
scholar.
Biden,
Come
7 states.
on.
I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal
He's
restriction
like, are you going to let
on
me
how far
respond to
into
that
a
bullshit?
pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea
It's
that
not
the
really
politicians, that the
Well,
founders want
technically,
politicians
they did
to
allow
be the ones
states
making
to place
decisions on women's
restrictions
health
in the
is
third
ridiculous.
semester.
Yeah.
That's the last. No politician should be making that decision.
Semester.
A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month.
I don't understand
and
this.
even
If I'm
after
elected,
birth,
I'll
because
restore
some
it. You're
states,
president
Democrat
right
run,
now.
take it
Fucking
after
restore
birth.
it. then.
Again, the former governor of Virginia.
Well, the Republicans
Put the
have the
baby
House.
down, then we decide what
so
to
he
do
can't.
with it.
I
So
know, but
he's willing to,
they
as
might
we say,
again.
rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants
You
it
know,
to
I
happen.
wish it would happen at this
That is
point.
simply not true. Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger.
Also
she'll be able to
mention that
die.
that's not a thing
That's the
that
only circumstance
happens.
in which that can happen. But
Or
we
he's-
are not for
doesn't
late-term
do that,
abortion, period.
Oh, you
Period,
mean just
period.
generally,
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you
And it
want,
can be
depending on the
restricted.
state. You can do whatever
and
you
it can
want.
be
We
restricted.
don't think that's
According
a good
to Trump,
thing.
he
We think
wants
it's
it
a
to the
radical thing.
states.
We think the Democrats are the
You
radicals.
can do anything
not
you
the
want depending on the
For
state.
51
Well,
years,
isn't that
was
what
the
Trump
law.
says he
51
wants?
years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans,
God, I wish you
control
would
the
say
There we
how they're
go.
coming for
and they
birth
pass
control
a
now.
universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10
IDF,
weeks,
say it too.
something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border
time.
states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where, when he was president, he was separating babies from.
This is the
Talk
first
about
time
the
any
fucking bill
making sure they were the
that
families
he
were
Well, that's
tried
what he
to
was saying.
pass.
That's not the right way to
Yeah.
go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I
really
didn't even
don't know
mention
what he
that
said
Trump
at the end of that
told
sentence. I don't
Republicans
think
not
he
to
knows what
vote
he
for
said
that.
either. Look, we had the safest
That's what I'm
border in the
saying.
history of our country.
That's what I said.
All he had to do was leave it. All he had to do
Oh,
was
yeah.
leave it.
Well, he mentioned it.
Decided
Yeah,
to
he was
open up
trying to
our
do it,
border,
but yeah,
open up our
he didn't
country
say that
to
Trump
Mhm.
told them not to
people
do
that
it.
are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest
Trump has
number of
already
terrorists
said this
coming into our
point
country
at
right
least
now.
2
All
other
terrorists,
times.
all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East,
He's just a
everywhere,
broken
all over the
record
world. They're
on
pouring
this.
in.
From the middle, well,
This
when he
guy
says from the Middle
just
East,
left it open,
all over the
and he
world,
didn't
the
need
Middle East,
legislation.
obviously
Because
that's
I
race
didn't have
baiting.
legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had
That was
Border
during a
Patrol
pandemic.
who was
Do you
great.
really
And by the
think
way, who
people
endorsed
are
me for
trying to
president.
come
I won't
into
say
other
that.
countries
He endorsed
illegally
me for
during a
president.
pandemic? No,
Brandon,
they're
you
not.
speak
They're
to him.
staying home.
But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And
Then
people
it's
are
not the
dying
worst in
all over the
history.
place,
That's not
including the
true at
people
all.
that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed 3 under his administration, killed an Al Qaeda person coming in his administration, killed 3 American soldiers, That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're
Yeah,
welcoming these people.
it's
That's simply
ridiculous.
Also,
not
they're
true. There's
fucking
no
flying
data
over
to
here.
support what he said. Once
Give me
again,
a
he's
break.
exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on
And
the
plus,
topic of
why wouldn't they
immigration,
come in
you
through
said that you're
Canada
going
if
to
you
carry
want
out,
to be a
quote, the
terrorist
largest
coming
domestic
through? Like,
deportation operation
go
in
that way.
American
Who
history,
cares?
unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades?
Yes.
And if
Finally,
so, how will you do it?
Trump has never
Just
been
1
asked
second. He
this.
said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani. The 2
He did not
greatest
say
terrorists,
you
biggest
killed
terrorists
them. He
anywhere in
said
the world.
the
And it had a
guy
huge
killed
impact
them.
on everything, not just border.
Oh my
on
God, that's not
everything.
who he's talking
He's the
about.
one that killed people with the bad water, including
Biden is like,
hundreds
what
of
are you?
thousands of people
What are
dying,
you?
and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders
trying
anymore. Every state is
literally
now a border.
everywhere. The
And
idea that
because
you're
of
going to
his
take a small
ridiculous,
few
insane,
local
This is
very
exactly
stupid
what
policies,
GD
people are
says.
coming in
Every
and they're
state's
killing
now a
our
border.
citizens at a level that we've
Yeah.
never seen.
That's
We
their
call it
justification
migrant
for going
crime.
crazy
I
everywhere.
call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before.
No,
And
that's
you're
wrong.
reading
That
it
is a
like these
lie.
3 incredible
Never
young girls
seen,
over the last
never
few
seen,
days.
blah, blah.
One of them I just spoke to
That's
the mother,
Trump's drinking game,
and
as you were
he
saying.
just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now.
Wait, wasn't
He
there
doesn't want it to be.
supposed to
He
be a
just doesn't know.
question?
He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything
I
like
lost
it.
track.
And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out.
Yeah, I don't
fast,
even remember.
because they're
I
going to
think there was
destroy our
supposed to be
country.
It was
Just take
will
a
you
look at where they're
will you
living.
deport
They're
everyone that's
living in
illegal?
luxury.
Oh, yeah,
hotels
yeah. Actually,
in New
no,
York City and other places.
he doesn't want to
Our
talk about
veterans
it.
are on the street. They're dying.
No,
He
because he
doesn't
they're
doesn't
want to
living
care
in
talk
about
about
our
luxury
veterans. He
hotels.
doesn't
Who's
care- he
living
doesn't
in
like the
luxury
military
hotels?
at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans.
They're
Nobody
living
been worse.
10
I
to
have
a
the
fucking
highest
bunk bed.
approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through
So many
Congress.
horrible things
all
about
of the
veterans.
different things I approved, they abandoned. We had
What
by
about all the
far the
losers
highest,
that
and now it's down in less
were
than half
captured?
Yeah.
because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people
No,
at
that's
our
actually
border by
what he
allowing
President Trump.
all of
Things
these people
Obama
to
did.
come in. And
President
it's a very
Biden,
sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the
Cut it
mic.
off.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example,
There we go.
veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was
He
Agent
also
Orange or
just pardoned
Orange, they're all
all
being
the
covered now.
veterans that were punished
he
for being
opposed-
gay. So
Who group opposed that? We're also
he
in a
should bring that
situation
up.
where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits. Came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the
Oh,
World War
yeah.
II cemetery.
And Trump called them
World War I
losers.
cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker.
Yep.
You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump.
Oh,
Yeah, first of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines.
it was his
He made
own
that up.
chief of
He
staff
put it in
who said
commercials.
that
We've
he
notified
said
him.
Yes.
We have
on the
19
record.
people that said I didn't
On
say
the
it. And think of
record.
this.
It
Who
wasn't
would
made up.
say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taking better care. I'm so glad this came
Because you
up.
didn't want to
and
get
he
your
brought
hair
it up.
wet. That's why
There's
you
nobody
left
that's
and
taken
didn't
better
show
care of
up.
our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19
No, it was
people
just to
that
your
said
chief
it
of
was never
staff.
said by me.
He
It
lies
was
about the
made up by him,
situation.
just like Russia.
I
Russia,
wish
Russia
Biden
was
would have
made up.
mentioned the
Just like
pardoning
the 51
thing whilst
intelligence
Trump was coming
agents
after
are made
trans
up.
people in the
Just
military.
like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51
They have to
intelligence
talk about
agents
things
said
that are
that
tangible
the
to
laptop
the
was
American
Russian
public to understand.
disinformation. It
Oh,
wasn't.
Hunter
That came
Biden.
from his
There it
son,
is.
Hunter. It wasn't
The
Russia
first one.
disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize
Maybe
to me right
that's
now.
the
4-star
drinking game.
general standing to your side, was on your staff, said you said it. Period. That's number one.
Yes.
And number
There we
two,
go.
the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. American history. And
Now
they
pivot to
now
the
are their
actual
family.
question
The only
about how
sacred
Trump
obligation we have as a
wants
country.
concentration
for our
camps
veterans when they come
for
home,
over 10
families,
million
Talk
and
people.
equip
about
them when
the
they go to
pardon.
war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now.
Let's
We're
not get
doing
hung
more
up
for
on the
veterans
quote.
than ever
Yeah.
before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's
So they
war
didn't. They just let
against
Trump
Ukraine,
completely
which
evade
is
the
now in
question
its third
about
year.
his
Yeah.
Former
concentration
President
camp.
Trump, Russian
He's not going
President
to
Vladimir
say
Putin
it.
says he'll only end
Yeah.
this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed
Trump
and
just went
Ukraine
to say,
abandons
this would have
its
never
bid
happened if
to
I had
join
been the
NATO.
president.
Are
And he will
Putin's terms
repeat a
acceptable to
version
you?
of that in
First
his
of all,
entire response.
Our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander in chief.
That's
if
not
what you
true at
call him,
all. They
that
actually
we've
were
ever had. They
embarrassed
can't
of Trump.
stand him. So let's get that straight.
Everybody,
And they like me more
yeah,
than
he's
just about
he's just
any of them.
making it up.
And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple
I
those
knew
numbers.
he would say that.
He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with
Now Trump's trying
Afghanistan.
to
It was such
pretend
a
that he's
horrible
tough on Putin.
embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the
His
history
best
of our
friend.
country. That when Putin watched that,
I'm
and he
friends
saw
with
the
lots of people,
incompetence, that
Trump
he
says.
should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned, and so he's got no love lost. But he
The
should have
one that you
fired those
mentioned.
generals. No general got fired
Whose
for
name
the
he
most
can't even
embarrassing
remember.
moment in
Oh,
the history of our
exactly.
John
country,
Kelly.
Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of
Oh, somebody
equipment
was
behind.
in
We
front of the
lost
camera
13
there.
beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated.
Oh,
And by
man.
the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never.
This is just
Israel would have never been
nonsensical
invaded
hypotheticals.
in a million years
Just like
by
Israel.
Hamas. You know why?
Wouldn't have,
Because Iran was
because he's
broke
friends with
with me.
Hamas.
I wouldn't let anybody do business with them.
Because
They ran out of
Iran,
money.
no,
They
you
were
let
broke. They had
Iran
no
get
money for
nuclear
Hamas.
bombs
They had no
by
money for anything.
Yeah.
No
any
money for
sort
terror.
of
That's why you had no
monitoring
terror
that they
at all
had.
during
And-
my administration.
And you took
This
that
place,
away.
the whole world was blowing up under him.
That's not true at
President
all.
Biden?
There were tons of terrorist
I've never
attacks.
heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these
I want them
troops.
to both be
And he
asked
did
about
not-
Khashoggi.
recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches.
Not that was
That's all
Iran,
it
but
is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we
Yeah,
got
well,
over
Biden needs to hit him on
100,000
his Saudi
Americans
Arabia
and
stuff
others out
because
of
Trump is
Afghanistan
a complete
during
lick
that area.
spittle to them.
Number three, we
Sucks
found
Saudi
ourselves in a
cock.
situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine,
I mean,
this
Biden
guy
also didn't
told
do anything
Ukraine,
about
told
Khashoggi,
Trump,
so
do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly
Well,
what
that's
Trump did
but
to Putin, encourage him.
but
Do
he didn't
whatever
take
you want.
$2
And he went
billion.
in. Listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
as I
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine.
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a
But
leader in
first,
this
actual
war,
follow-up.
he let
This is
everybody
all
along.
Trump will.
He's given
It would have
$200
never
billion
happened. Blah, blah,
now
blah.
or more
Okay.
to Ukraine. He's
Yank,
given
yank, yank.
$200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying,
Okay, then why'd
the
you say
money
it?
that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending. It should have never happened. I will have
Okay,
that war
literally,
settled
Trump has
between
said should
Putin
have
and
never happened,
Zelensky
would have never
as
happened at least
president-elect before
5
I
or
take
6
office
times.
on
Like, that's
January
not
4th.
even an
I'll have that
argument.
war settled.
It's a fucking
People
hypothetical.
being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled. And I'll
All we
get it
should do
settled
is
fast
let
before I
them
take office.
surrender.
You know,
Biden,
Notice he
Yeah.
never says how.
the fact
How?
is that Putin is
How are
a
you
war
going to
criminal.
do it?
He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those
yeah, no
NATO countries?
shit.
And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he
Yeah.
says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, But so far, Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use?
And has said
to
they
get
will
Hamas and Israel
indefinitely,
to end the war?
regardless of what happens.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7,
Says we're committing
the
genocide.
Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which is
That
three
Israel
stages
is.
to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel? We're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so that's
Also, this whole mess,
things.
it can be
Hamas
argued, started
allowed
when
to continue.
Trump
We
claimed
continue to send our
Jerusalem
troops,
for
and we're telling people
Israel.
how
Yeah.
we can get Hamas
Yeah.
like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do
It
it.
was just
And by the way,
instigating
they
everything.
greatly weakened Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated.
But he
you've
needs
got
to
be
say,
careful for what
Trump
using
will
certain
give
weapons among
Israel
population
carte
percentage.
blanche to kill as many
Let's get
people
back
as
to
they
Ukraine
want.
for 1 second. We have
I mean-
an ocean separating us. The European
Biden's already
nations
doing
together
that.
have spent
Trump would
$100
be
billion
worse.
or maybe more than that,
Oh,
less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General
Biden literally
of NATO
just
Trump
said
did the most incredible job
the
I've ever
NATO
seen.
European
They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were
He
spending
literally
almost
just said that.
100% of the money was paid by
Trump
us.
did not pay attention to what
He
he
didn't do
just
that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
What?
President Biden, you have a
What?
minute.
Is that
Never heard
even?
so
Is
much
that a riddle?
foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO?
a Palestinian.
The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but
Biden just needs to say Trump will make Ukraine surrender because he's a coward and he wants to withdraw from
Article 5
everything
agreement.
and
Attack
be
on one is attack on all.
Putin's
You
errand
want to
boy.
start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that,
I'd have to see. You haven't decided?
So, and by the way, the EU has spent over $80 billion on Ukraine.
Because if you add them up,
the
they're
United
about the
States
same
has
size
spent
economically.
just over
Their
70.
economy is about the same size as
So
the United
it's
States.
complete lie.
They were
What Trump's
no
saying.
cars, no. They don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about
Sir,
this.
would
I said,
you
no, I'm
recognize
not
a
going to support
Palestinian
NATO if
state?
you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us
That's
against
the
Russia?
question.
At a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's
you.
bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few.
Border? What?
January 6th, we were energy independent.
He will literally turn
we had the
any
lowest taxes
to the
ever.
border.
We had the lowest regulations
Because that's
ever.
the only
On
issue where
January
people
6th, we were
actually
respected
have
all
any
over the
sort of-
world.
Let me tell you about the
All
border.
over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now left.
No, we
at
were not
like
respected,
A bunch
Trump.
of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership?
Reputation of U.S.
horrible,
under Trump
including
was far worse.
weaponization, which I'm sure
Anybody
at some point
knows
we'll be
that.
talking about,
Everybody
where he
knows
goes
that.
after
Check
his
the
political
poll
opponent because he can't
URL
beat
on
him
the
fair
bottom of
and
the
square.
screen here.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that
Trump
you'll
did
do it
not
again?
answer.
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the
And fight
news
like
from
hell.
2
Now
days
he's
ago,
going to lie
on
about
tape to her
Pelosi.
daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say. But she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard.
She was speaking
and she turned it
generically.
down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing,
No,
turned it down.
he
The
did
mayor
not.
of D.C. They
He
turned it
offered
down.
Pelosi
In
I offered
writing.
10,000.
He sent him a
They never
Post-it
said
note.
anything to
I had
her.
virtually
And she's not
nothing to
even
do. They asked me to go
responsible
make a
for it.
speech.
He is
I could see what was
responsible.
happening. Everybody was saying they're
for
going to
the
be there
National
on
Guard
January
in
6th. They're going to
DC.
be there. And I said, you
The
know
president.
what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she
And then
now
on January
admits that
6th, he never
turned it
called
down.
anyone.
And it was the
Did
same
not
day.
make
she
a
was,
single
I don't
phone
know. She
call
can't
to
be
the
very happy
military.
with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no.
Thank you.
He went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to
Whiner
some
that he
people
is.
that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives
Who are
of
the
so many
innocents?
people. When they
Tell us.
ripped down Portland, when they
Most
ripped
of whom
down
were prosecuted.
many
under
other
Trump's
cities.
What are we
Cities,
talking about
right.
Portland now?
Minnesota,
We're talking about January
Minneapolis,
6th
what they've
and the
done
border.
with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National
Antifa.
Guard, that city would have been
Antifa.
destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming and they left immediately.
Sure.
What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing, the
Peaceful and
Unselect
patriotic.
Committee, which is basically two
Unselect.
horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats. All
Because of
Democrats.
cancel culture.
They destroyed and deleted all of the information they found.
They did
because
not
found out
delete
we were right.
anything. Nothing
We were
was
right.
deleted.
And
He's
they
lying.
deleted and
He's
destroyed all
literally
of the
lying.
information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to
Thank
jail.
you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on. up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who are convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted
at a very high level. Who gives a fuck? We're not voting for Hunter.
But his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible
most
things.
important things like
the
buying
border,
a gun,
telling the Ukrainian people that you're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor.
Biggest crime in the world.
Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor, having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky.
He was fired because he wouldn't investigate.
We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
It's literally the opposite of what
President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three,
Biden has nothing to do
so you
with
are still charged.
To say no president has suggested going after his political enemies is historically inaccurate.
Richard Nixon.
Exactly.
Having sex with a porn
Although, but it is true, the case that Trump just got convicted of, it started while Trump was the president. Biden hadn't even run for an election.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started.
Sure.
They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case.
No, it was a guy who
wanted
a more high-paying job.
A terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me.
Biden had nothing to do with it.
Found out about these cases.
He can't tell states what to do.
He has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks.
You know that because you're reporting it. Aren't they fake news, though?
In the history
or are they?
Any campaign, I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Majority of the public approves
President Biden,
of the
you
conviction.
have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around.
Project 2025.
He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? You ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run the first place after my son had died in Iraq.
I mean, again, probably.
Run again. Until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas. on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile
And
they sang.
that Trump said we're good
back
people.
in Germany. And and the young woman got killed. They spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The people
Trump
who
never talked to her mother, by the
tried
way.
to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say?
And the fine people the night before
carrying
who
torches,
marched at a
singing
Nazi rally
same
holding
anti-Semitic
torches,
bile,
saying
carrying
Jews will not
swastikas
replace us.
were fine
That's
people.
who Trump said was
This is
very
the guy who
fine
says
people.
Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
He really doesn't.
Jake, both of you know that sir has been totally wiped out. Because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran
When you
because
see
of
the sentence.
Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know
So
it, and I
he's
know
not
it's ridiculous.
responding
We have
to
a
it.
debate. We're
He's
trying
not
to
responding to
justify
it.
his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We
Is
shouldn't
that
be
why
having
the
a debate
stock
about it.
market
There's
is at
nothing
an
to debate.
all-time high?
He made up the Charlottesville
And
story,
unemployment
and
is
you'll
at
see it's
60-year
debunked all
lows.
over the place. Every anchor every reasonable anchor has.
There you go.
Just
See
the other
that?
day it came out.
Every
It's
anchor, every
There it
reasonable
is.
anchor.
a nonsense
Yep.
story. He knows that,
So
and he
caught
didn't
up
run
in the
because of
bubble
Charlottesville.
of
He used
lies.
that as an excuse
He
to
has
run.
no idea what he's talking about.
President Biden.
And debunked. It
He
happened.
didn't even.
All
He
you have to do
literally
is
did
listen to
not
what was
say
said at
any
the
kind of
time.
rebuttal. Did
And
not
the
even
idea that
like,
somehow that's the
no.
only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the
No.
idea that he's talking about all this being
And notice
fabricated,
Trump never says
saw their eyes.
who.
We saw what happened on
If there
January
were
6th.
other
We saw
people
the
at the
people
Nazi
breaking
rally that were
windows.
good,
We saw people
who were they?
occupying
Let's
it.
see their
There's no
pictures.
vice president.
What do they
Look,
look
there's
like?
a reason why 40 of his 44 top
They
cabinet
don't
officers
exist, and they
refused to
never
endorse him
existed.
this time. His vice president hasn't
They were
endorsed him.
Nazis and
So
Confederates.
why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with
Yep,
more from the
that's a good
CNN
point.
presidential debate.
Trump is literally the first president to ever have his own cabinet members and former staff members be like, don't vote for this guy. He's crazy. No president in history has ever had that
Yeah.
problem, except for
First
him.
president in
That-
history also with a full-on cult.
Yeah,
As far as
I know, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Even, even somebody like Nixon, I mean, aside from Roger Stone having a tattoo of him on his back, I don't know anyone that's, carrying a flag for him or any other president.
Yeah.
I think the
Well, no,
closest we've gotten to cult members for a president besides that is all the Irish Catholic people that have had and continue to have framed photos of JFK in their home.
and that was pretty common. Yeah. Although, I mean, it was just, I think it was because it was so rare because there had never been a Catholic president. In
Exactly.
American
And that was a big
until
mhm.
him. And so they admired his accomplishment. But yeah, like they weren't in a cult for the guy. They just thought it was great that he became the
Yeah.
president. So looks like they're on a break here. I'm gonna remove it from the feed here for a second.
They're going for a little potty break.
That's
Get some
right,
water.
and,
Biden really needs a glass of water. Please.
He
somebody.
really does. He sounds like he's in the desert, and
It's-
Trump's got to get his shot of Epic Times or Gateway Pundit.
It is.
To see
It
what
is
they
so
want
frustrating.
Alex Jones wants him to say. Go ahead. Sorry.
It is so frustrating to me that the anchors aren't saying to him, "You need to answer the question," because I understand taking a moment, taking a beat to, if you'd like to have a short little rebuttal, but he's not answering any of the fucking questions.
No, he didn't, and especially like with that whole deportation thing, like he's there because there are, depending on the estimates, at least 10 million unauthorized immigrants in the United States, and Trump says, "I'm going to deport them all." So either that is a pathetically obvious, stupid lie that only a moron would believe. Or if
Mhm.
it's serious, he wants to build giant concentration camps. And like that's either scenario is not good. It's not good.
Yeah, they're not really holding his feet to the fire. I mean, I appreciate that they have the mute button, which is embarrassing that we have to have that in the first place. I'm gonna keep
Oh
saying
yeah.
that. I think if you can't have a civil conversation for 90 minutes, you shouldn't be running for president of the United States. You should be disqualified, regardless of what party you're in. But it he's just doing the thing he does best, which is skating around the question and not giving an actual answer to anything. And it is really frustrating to see because any of his followers watching continue to live in this like cloud of plausible deniability where they're like, well, he never said the thing, and it's like, yeah, he never did say the thing. It's like it's like the people that defend him, this is a kind of a sidebar, but the people that defend him and try to say he's not racist because they're like, well, because he just like hasn't said I'm a racist. So please, nobody clip that out.
So
Me saying
therefore,
that.
he's not. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like he does and says racist shit all the time, but because he doesn't just identify as such outright, then then he couldn't
Yeah.
be because he doesn't
No,
claim to be
no.
one.
Yep.
Like,
All right. Well, it looks like
what?
the debate's coming back here. So hold on.
Causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure because when you provide,
and also don't forget funding historically Black colleges.
Because more people can.
Biden did that significantly.
So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left.
And they know it?
What
She
do you
just
say
said
to
they have
Black
questions about it,
voters
so
who are
that's
disappointed with the
condescending.
progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family,
and he's got to talk about reflation. These companies raise their prices up just to get cash.
All those Black families and those Black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing,
student loan at Trump University,
if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
And Republicans are trying to stop that.
And he caused the inflation.
And what else are you going to do? You can't just say you're going to do
and he's
more.
right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing
And all the people he cares about most.
Groceries anymore. They can't look at the cost of food where it's
Trump's going to be like,
tripled and quadrupled.
It's killing the Black families, and by the way, they like me
anymore.
because I'm a felon and I
He
have a
caused this inflation.
mugshot.
I gave him a country with no.
He did not
essentially
cause
no
the
It
inflation.
was perfect. It was so good. All he had to
Trump
do was
does
leave
this
it alone.
scam where he pretends that COVID, when it caused things that make him look bad, it was not his fault. It was the pandemic. But when things happened that were making Biden look bad, then Biden did it, not the pandemic.
Is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now. And it could be
immigration,
18, it could be 19 and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs and they're taking Hispanic jobs. And you haven't seen it yet. but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in
Is
our
that why
history.
there's
Thank you.
the
President
worst,
Biden?
the lowest black
There was no
unemployment ever?
inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back.
There we
50%
go.
unemployment. He
Finally
decimated
saying
the
that.
economy. Absolutely decimated the economy.
The
That's
worst
why there was no
economy since
inflation
the Great
at the
Depression.
time. There were
Donald
no
Trump.
jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for
I mean, it was
individuals
also during
in
COVID.
all communities,
So that's,
including
I
minority
mean,
communities.
I
We
hate
made
Trump.
sure that they have health insurance.
Well,
We
that's
have
that's what I'm
coverage.
saying. Like
The
Trump's,
ACA
he
has
wants to
increased.
say
I made
inflation
sure
was
that
low because of me,
$8,000 per person
but
in
also
a family
doesn't want to
written
talk
off
about
for healthcare.
unemployment
This guy wants to
being
eliminate
high.
that. They
Like
tried 50
it was
times.
both
He wants
because
to
of
get
the
rid of the
pandemic.
ACA again.
It's
And
nothing
they're
to
going
do
to
with
try
Trump.
again if they win. We find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing anything, I've put more.
And
we put
Biden's
more
got to
police on
mention
the street
that
than
inflation
any
in the
administration
is
has.
lower
He
than
wants
in
to
every
cut the
other
costs.
major
We're providing
industrial
for
country.
equity, and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another
Oh.
persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Let me just go back to what he said about
Oh,
police.
Christ almighty.
Close the police are to him.
Immigration.
Almost every police group in the nation, from
Everything
every
is about
state,
immigration.
is supporting
Mhm.
Donald
He's
J.
a
Trump.
broken record.
Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was
It
his
is
name.
so
And he
cringe to
called it
hear
to 'em,
two old
and
white
they've
men
taken
talk
great
about all
offense
they're
at it.
doing
And
for
now
the
they
Black
see it
community.
happening. But when they see what I
I'm
did
gonna
for criminal
unzip my
justice
skin.
reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black
I read this
population
morning. You're not
because he's
reading
done a
anything.
horrible job for black people. He's also done a
It was on
horrible
the back
job
of a
for
Cheerios box.
Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had
So that's why you're going to get
H2O.
rid of the
We had the
EPA.
best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that
The best
statistic
environmental
going up
number.
on the stage,
What
actually.
does it even
Yeah,
mean?
because no one was
That's what it
driving
means.
because there
Yeah,
was no
he-
pollution.
Anything
That's
he
why the
says.
gas prices were lower.
I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion
Oh, there he
for
goes.
HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing with the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change. And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
Trump has literally nothing to say
Paris
about it.
Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And
Oh,
I
true.
ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And
So you don't
it
want
was a
to
disaster.
help the environment.
Everything that he said just
It's
now, I'll
also
give you an
not
example.
true
I
what
heard
he
him say
said.
before, insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing,
He did
is
nothing at
destroying
all.
our medical
Biden
programs
did it.
because the
And
migrants coming
Republicans
in,
were
they
angry
want
that he did it.
everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to
The
take care
biggest
of people,
heart.
but we're destroying our country. They're
Like
taking
Maybe the
nothing
biggest
you've ever
word on.
seen.
hospitals, and they're going to be
On
taking
the
over
stage,
Social
yeah.
Security. He is destroying Social
Although not if you
Security,
ask Stormy
Medicare,
Daniels.
and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get its under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're gonna, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that
that
one
would
enough?
Well,
that would do it.
That one enough to keep it solvent. The biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare.
His budget every year
That's if
included
you look at
cuts.
the program put forward
He
by
wants to get
the
rid
House
of it
Republican
entirely.
caucus that he, I believe, supports is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where we talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 towards their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years.
All my life.
I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He could look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything
Hunter
he
Biden.
does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation.
He had nothing to do with the laptop
losers
of
and
Hunter
sucker
Biden.
story that he made
He
up.
said
was a
nothing
total
about
lie on the military. It's a disgrace.
And
But
Trump
Social
has
Security,
repeatedly
he's
talked about
destroying
cutting
it
Social
because
Security.
millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social
He
Security.
just
They're
wants
putting them onto Medicare,
immigration.
Medicaid. They're putting
Immigration.
them in our hospitals.
He's
They're taking the place of
the
our
idea that
citizens.
they're
What they're
putting
doing to the VA, to our
unauthorized
veterans, is
immigrants on
unbelievable.
Social
Our veterans are
Security.
living in
That
the
is
street, and these people are living
deranged
in luxury hotels. He
nonsense.
doesn't know what he's doing, and
Hotels.
it's really coming back. I've
By the
never
way,
seen
Trump
such
citing
anger
a New
in our
York
country
Post
before.
story on that, which
President Biden?
was
The
retracted
idea
by
that
the New York
veterans are
Post.
not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he said he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
Yeah,
President Biden, thank you
it's
so much. Let's turn
true.
to the cost of child
It's
care, which
true.
many
They
American
took a
families
poll.
struggle to afford. President Trump,
Of
both you and
historians,
President
yep.
Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said
Oh
that,
my
that's why
God,
he made
we're
it up.
back
But we have
here.
19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than
19
him.
people who weren't there.
The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the
This is a
FBI, drained the
fucking
swamp. They were
revolving
no good.
door.
Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these
You
people. I
hire
didn't pay them. I
incompetent
didn't put
people.
Comey there. He was no good. I fired
And also
him.
plenty of the
This guy hasn't
people
fired
who he
anybody.
didn't fire
He
have
never
said,
fires.
don't
He
vote for
should have
him. He's
fired
nuts and a
every
crazy old
military man
man.
that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't
I
fire.
don't know
Did you
about
fire
that.
anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border
Yeah.
in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for
In the
allowing
history of
18
the
million
world.
people, many from prisons,
Yeah.
many from
France being invaded by the
mental
Nazis,
institutions?
the
Did you
Maginot
fire
Line,
anybody that
yeah.
allowed our country to be destroyed?
It was
Joe,
worse
our
than that.
country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and
It is
waste a
not
lot
being
of time in this
destroyed.
debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He's the
Historic
worst president. He
unemployment
just said about me
low.
because I said it.
It's not
Look,
destroyed.
he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with
It's so
nothing,
destroyed.
a nothing
The
deal,
stock
and
market's
it
at a
reduced it
record.
a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it
We
is.
won't.
It's the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States
Yep.
of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number
Wow.
one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online. 159 or
Go online.
58.
We'll put it
the
on a
exact number.
post it for you.
Presidential historians. They've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst
Yeah.
in all.
Trump's
of
pretending
American
that never
That's a
happened.
fact.
It did
That's
happen.
that's
Like,
not conjecture.
these
You
historians
can
do it
argue they're wrong,
every
but
few
that's what they
years.
voted.
Who's the
The
best
idea that he
rankings?
is doing
And Trump
anything
is
to
the
deal with
worst,
child
obviously.
care.
Anyone who is not
virtually nothing with
deranged
child
with
care.
Biden's
We should
derangement syndrome
significantly
would know.
increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to to have.
Thank you, President
childcare
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make childcare more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling.
Oh my
we have
God.
other things that they really
Immigration.
do.
We'll
Is what
never
he's done
hear.
is so bad, and they rate you. I'll show you. I will show you.
Oh,
And they
Biden's
rate you one of
muted.
the best. Okay, and if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's
Yeah.
the only one I know. He wants to raise
The
your
worst
taxes
unemployment
4
since the
times.
Great
He wants to
Depression.
raise
No
everybody's
one ever did
taxes
that.
by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to
No, not
expire.
everybody's.
So everybody,
For
including the two of
wealthy
you, are going to pay
people.
4 to 5
That-
times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I grow up and I see politicians
Ever
talking
before,
about
ever
cutting
before.
taxes.
Drink.
When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history
We did
by
not
far,
get
and
more
everybody
revenue.
knows it.
President Biden?
Look, fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more, because they're going to have to pay the difference in food
Yeah.
and all the things that are very important. Number two,
They're not
in a
going to
situation
stop
where
importing
he
things.
talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are at the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
We're at the
President
highest.
Biden.
You lost
Thank you, President Biden.
160,000.
Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. We have, so I think he's afraid to deal with
Your
it.
daughter and yourself
But you notice
literally
he never
have
put back my
trademarks in
tariffs
China.
because we bring in so much money with the
Oh,
You're
tariffs
trying to
imposed
build
on
properties
China.
in
We never
China.
took them away. You can't because it's too much
You
money.
said
It's tremendous. And
you
we saved
love
our steel
China.
industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China is going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was
He has no plans for anything ever.
Where it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog. That's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen. The way they can spot it. We did a lot.
And we
were getting
this
very
is also we're talking about the future, not the past. What are you talking about?
Numbers, have you seen the
Okay, I'm
numbers
going to try
now?
to search here.
Not
What
only
the hell is he
18
talking
million
about?
people
A
that I
dog.
believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he never argued it's not a
Finally,
good bill.
Biden says
It's a
that.
really good bill. We need those
Yeah.
machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of
Speaking
addiction
of
right now,
dogs,
struggling to get the
Once
treatment.
check the
again,
banner.
Because this does pertain it to it. He ended command in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here.
So Trump
We had so
Trump
many
has
things
no
that we had done. Hard
solution for
negotiations
anyone with
Mexico, and I got
addiction.
it all for
none.
He has
nothing.
nothing to
It's
say.
just like when you have a hostage. We always
He
pay
has no
$6 billion
policies about
for
anything
everything
other
that says
than
hostage. Now we
imprisoning
have a
people.
hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is
Biden
laughing
should
at
say
this guy,
that, though.
probably asking
Trump
for
has no
billions of dollars
ideas, no
for the
policies,
reporter.
other
I
than
will
that he
have
wants
him out
power.
very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where he paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized as being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that this look what I've done. Look how I turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought off a lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs they call to build these chips.
Chip
Those
fabrication.
fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs.
This is true.
From all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world.
Very anti-American.
Maybe a single major country president wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word.
I don't know what that
And
means.
everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, who he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about
And
your
also you're
capability
morbidly
to serve?
obese.
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them. As you know, they made it public. He took
Person,
one,
woman,
he
man,
took one,
camera,
took one.
TV.
A real easy one. I go through the
He's
first
a
5
genius.
questions. You couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year.
He's like, I took one of
And,
those things with the blocks and I
knock on
put the
wood,
shapes in the
wherever we may
correct
have lived,
holes.
but I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have
At
to
his
be
own club.
quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was.
And by the way, Trump won't
30
release a
years ago. Actually, I'm
physical.
probably a little bit
He
lighter,
hasn't released his
but I'm in
physical at
as
all.
good a shape as I
Biden has
was
released it every year.
years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was
So
willing to
release
take
your
a cognitive
physical then,
test.
Trump.
And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy
There
when he
is
was
no
White House doctor. And then I
A
took
through
another
F
one, a similar
system.
one. And one of them said they've never
Oh my
seen
If
anyone
Trump's
God.
so
case.
confident,
Thank you.
why won't he release
Biden.
his
It's like
numbers now?
testing you to
He
make sure you
is
don't have a
6'5" and only
concussion.
223 pounds or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're. Anyway,
What's happening?
just take a look at what he
Don't
says
ask
he
him a
is.
question,
Take
Biden.
a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6.
Who
I don't
cares
talk
about your
about
golf
golf.
score?
I'm happy to play
Jesus
golf.
Christ.
What are we
Something wrong with that.
doing?
Please,
You know
no.
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
Okay, this is ridiculous. This is
Well,
embarrassing.
This is
I've
almost
seen
as
you
bad
swing. I
as
know you swing.
Okay, let's
Trump
let's
arguing
not act
over
like children.
penis
President Trump,
sizes
we're going
with
to
my
turn
Let's
overview.
not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins? And
I love that they now
you will
have to
say right
qualify
now that
once all legal
political
challenges
violence
have
in
been
any
exhausted.
form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've
Which
ever
is also
spoken
why
to.
he
And I will
never
tell you, nobody ever talks
called
about that. They
the
talk
National
about
Guard
a
to
relatively
make
small
people
number of
go
people
home.
that went to the Capitol. And in many
He
cases,
said, "I
were
love
actually hit
you.
by the
You're
police. And as
special."
Nancy Pelosi said,
The people
it
who
was her
tried to kill Mike
responsibility, not
Pence.
mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the
That's a
election is fair,
lie of
free,
what
and
he's
I want
saying.
that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my
Get the
many
fuck
places
out.
enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment.
No,
because
you
I
would be
was
running for
his
president no matter
you
what
know,
because you want to
opponent.
stay out
You're
of
right
jail.
here
He
to
indicted me
yeah,
because I was his
and to
opponent.
continue the
I wish he was
grift.
a great president. I
Yep.
would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there.
That's just
and Kim
nonsense.
Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III? Let him follow and win, and let Putin
Trump just keeps lying about
just do what you want.
other countries.
We're going to have another civil war. Is what we're
He
going to
was a
have.
joke.
On
Yeah, they did not respect him. They weren't afraid of him. They thought he was a crazy, demented old
Think
man.
of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done, what they've done, because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games.
Trump
He
did
took
nothing
from
to
me.
stop them while
Now
they
he's
were
gonna take
there.
the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war
But
that
according
should
to
have
Trump,
never
he's giving
started.
him
It
too
would
much
have never
money in
started,
Ukraine.
ever. with me.
Trump's trying to play
He's
both
going to take Ukraine.
sides of Ukraine.
And you asked me a question before. Would you do this with? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war.
That has
He said,
nothing
"I
to
will
do with
never
the
settle
question.
until such time." They're running out of people. They're
Nothing to
running
do
out of
with the
soldiers. They've
question.
lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked.
President
They would have
Trump, the
never
question was,
attacked.
will you
That's
accept
not
the
an
result
argument.
of the election, regardless
Thank you,
of who
Dan and
wins?
Dash.
Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else
Accepted
was
these?
ridiculous. And if you want,
What
we'll
does
have a
that
news
mean?
conference on it in a week, or we'll have
This
another one of
election
these on
is what
in
he
a week.
means.
But I will absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job
He
did
literally
destroying our country. I would be very
declared
happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again,
he ran
no
for
indictment,
re-election on
no
day
political
one of his
opponent stuff,
inauguration in
because it's the only way he
2017.
thinks he
Yeah.
can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see
Unfortunately,
what your
yeah.
numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued. You appealed and appealed to courts all across the country.
And he
Not
lied
one
about Ted
single
Cruz
court in
in
America
2017.
said any
Said
of
he
your
was
claims had
cheating
any
him,
merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke,
including run by
lie
Republicans.
about somehow there's all
Judges.
this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you
Yep,
lose again,
he
you
is a
accept
whiner.
anything, you can't
No one
stand
has
the loss.
ever
It's
told
happened,
him
you lost
that
the
he's a
loss.
crybaby loser.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN
Oh
presidential
man,
debate, live from Georgia.
I wish they would have run that, have shown that there. Okay, let's put that away. Well, so it looks like we are coming up. There's supposed to be only 9 more minutes left of the show here.
Yeah.
So
I like they leave us with a cliffhanger. I wonder what the final thing is going to be. If it's hopefully it's a slap fight between the two of them.
Oh God. Well, as long as Trump doesn't try to talk about immigration another time, for God's sake. Every single issue he comes back to that. It's like he really has no plans about anything. But I think it's a good example though of how Donald Trump has basically he is completely sort of sucked into the zombie right-wing media universe. He doesn't know how to talk to a normal person who's not in that world anymore. He really has no idea what to say to them. Like Hunter Biden laptop, like who the hell cares about Hunter Biden?
It's just like it's a loop
No
of
one.
like buzzwords that have no meaning, that are fully out of context. It's like it's like somebody put all these words in a little bag and shook it up, and every question that he gets, he just pulls one at random, and he's like, laptop, the border, and they're like, sir, we're talking about childcare, and he's like,
and it never would have happened. Yeah. And like you never seen before. It's like he literally cannot say a sentence without. And then what was the hell the thing about the dog? Anybody catch that? He was like, and then we bought the dog. We bought the dog that no one had ever thought of before.
Fuck.
Yeah, no one had ever thought of using drugs.
This leads me.
Dogs.
This now leads me.
Drugs. Go ahead. Sorry.
This it's not funny anymore. But I was gonna say it makes me worry about the dog, whatever dog that is that he's referring to.
Yeah, I tried to look it up and I couldn't see anything about it. It's like Gateway Pundit or who knows what the hell it was. I don't even know. But I don't know. It does seem like Biden did get his drink of water though. Didn't it seem that
Yeah.
way? God, he was so
Yeah.
hoarse in the beginning. It was like,
He was real, and it made it worse because it made him sound so much older. I'm like, oh no, somebody.
did.
He sounds like he's gasping for his last breath of air.
Yeah, and like I mean, you would think that they have water on the podium there. I mean, that's like the first thing they would say to somebody.
You would
Take
think. I mean,
a
if they
sip as
have, they
soon
can
as you
take
get up there.
notes. You would think they could take a little drink. Especially like, what if you kind of have a little spell and you choke a little bit? Then what? Somebody
Yeah,
have to rush the
exactly.
stage to help you?
Yeah, well, that would definitely be a bad look for whoever it was, whoever that happened to. But all right, looks like the feed is coming back here.
We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, this
We've
is the
made
closing
significant
statement.
They're just
progress
freestyling?
from the debacle that was
Yeah,
left
the closing
by
statement.
President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic.
He wants to have
tariffs
tariffs
in a position where
and no
he now
income
wants to
tax,
tax you more,
which would
put in a 10%
supercharge
tariff on everything
inflation.
that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices.
And it's true.
I'm going to make
Republicans were angry about it.
Senior.
I kind of wish they wouldn't talk about the national debt so much because I think people don't care.
I'm going to make sure that we have child care.
It's too abstract.
Significantly increase the credits people have for
Yeah.
child care.
I don't care.
We do something about what we're doing on
We can afford it
and all the things that are causing health problems
as a
for
country.
people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't
he's
do
saying
anything.
the things
He doesn't do all
he plans
That
to
he
do.
actually did.
This
by
asshole.
allowing millions and millions of people to pour in.
Immigration,
Our
there it
military
comes.
doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody
What
that
control
did
does
business
Trump
with
have
Iran,
over Hamas?
including
I'd like to
China,
know.
they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran
He's
was
claiming
broke. They had no money
that
for
Iran
Hamas or
controls
Hezbollah,
them, which
for
is
terror.
ludicrous.
No money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should
And
have
now
never
they have a
happened.
nuclear
He
bomb
talks about
because
all
of
this
him.
stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the
Living in
Palestinians and
hell.
we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times.
Palestinians
A whole country
rioting
is
all over the
exploding
place?
because of you.
What
Because
are
they
you
don't respect
talking
you,
about?
and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we
Trump
did
just
was
he just
incredible.
lies
We
about this.
rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest
He's
regulation.
just
Other
saying the
countries-
same
The
nonsense
reason he's
again.
got
Yeah,
jobs
it's the
is
same
because I cut
nonsense.
the
Like,
regulations that gave jobs.
But the
he's
Biden
putting a
people,
lot
they
of those
never push back
regulations
on that
back
enough
on.
as much as
All
they
of
should.
the things
Like,
that we've
everyone
done,
thought
nobody's
Trump
ever
was a big,
We've never
fat,
seen anything like,
stupid
even
moron.
from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and
Apparently
readied up
everyone in
and take
America
care
is
of
a
themselves,
veteran.
and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a
In
failing
the
nation,
history of the
but it's not
VA.
going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
And we turn that off. Well,
Yeah, seeing.
that was very low energy, I have to say, overall.
Well, I mean, what do you expect? They're 150. Did you think they were going to come out clapping and singing?
Okay, no, that's fair. Well, I will say,
Disappointed?
yeah, I feel like having no audience there, that definitely did sap it. But it was probably, and here's the weird thing is that I think that this
It's gotten so
format,
fucking weird.
it actually helped Trump, I think, because it restrained all of his, insanity. Basically.
Yeah, you can't hear how crazy he is. I mean, you
Yeah,
have
you
to
can't.
actually have a discerning ear and be paying attention and know that he's not saying anything of substance and he's not answering a single goddamn question, which a lot of people don't. A lot of people just hear him talking because most people don't know how to argue the argument when they're talking about something themselves.
No, they don't. They do not. All right. Well, so we, if anybody wants to post comments on here, I believe we can do that. If you just post a reply, we can show some of the responses. We got a response from somebody a while ago. I will highlight it. Somebody on YouTube named Is Krolls Go Debate. Yay, yes. So that's just a proof of concept for anybody to feel free to post your comments if you have anything you want to add into the space here. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was a lot less eventful. If you remember the 2016 first one that they had, God, it was insane how maniacal Trump was. He was like hyped up on God knows what, cocaine or something. You're talking about drug.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was crazy. And so, but yeah, this one, it was lower energy. And those closing statements though, man, they were just kind of like laundry lists, essentially. Didn't it seem that way to you? Like, I'm used to them having, but I guess maybe they couldn't write anything down for it. It was just more like, well, I did these 5 things here and I'm going to do, well, Trump didn't say anything he would do.
Yeah.
Which is like normal for him. But yeah, like it was just a bunch of laundry lists. But I guess maybe they didn't allow them to write anything. I don't know. That I'm thinking of the debates that I've watched in the past. Like I feel like they were more in previous years, yeah, a little bit more structured. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just whining.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Who knows?
What takeaways did you have, Lisa? From the whole thing. We survived, other than that we survived it without any snafus.
I mean, I wish Biden would say a little bit more about what his plans are in the future. I could kind of care less what Trump has to say because we know it's going to be lies and nonsense. But I'm a little tired of hearing. I think it's important for Democrats to say like, "Hey, we did this and this and I wish he would have." There's things that are. Here's the thing. I think politicians can have sometimes terminal politics brain, and they don't understand what regular people want to know about. Like for example, the national debt. I don't care. And I don't know a single person that cares. And I understand that affects us, but it's in such an abstract way. I care that that there isn't universal health care. I care that guns are a problem. I care that we're supporting Israel to continue a genocide. I care that more than 50% of Americans can't afford rent. Like those are things that we can see how they affect our daily lives versus these like kind of abstract concepts. And I think it is important on the one hand to point out hey, Biden did this, this, and this, because I think that those things can get lost in the shuffle. But I think it's
Mhm.
also equally, if not more, as important to say, in my second term, here are my plans, versus
Mhm.
100% being devoted to, well, we did these things, and this in like kind of in an abstract way, even like, well, we did a lot
Mhm.
for Black Americans. We gave money to HBCUs, which is great, and like upping Pell grants, which is great, but it's mostly been talked about in the abstract, and that drives me nuts because it leaves regular voters to have to try to sort that out, and nobody really knows what he's talking about in a lot of instances.
Yeah, no, it's true. And like, and the other thing is that, um, like Republicans, their whole goal is to break government, and then they run on saying government is broken. So they break the government, and then they say, "See, government, we told you government doesn't work," and it's like, because you
Mhm,
assholes broke it. And like, and Biden
mhm.
did do that. For there was one issue where he did that on immigration, where he said, that Trump told the Republicans not to vote for the bill that they negotiated and actually drafted on
Yeah.
immigration. But they did that on a number of things, and you hit on that about with abortion, that he should have said that, if you elect me, then I will codify Roe versus Wade. But he forgot to say you'll have to elect Democrats in the House if you want that to happen, because like
I don't
I
think he
think
even
to a lot of degree,
forgot to
people
say it. I think he's just focused
it's that
on,
politics brain is
well, I'm gonna
what
do
you're
this.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like people don't realize why certain things don't happen. Like I've seen like focus group interviews with people. They'll be like, "Well, why didn't Biden do this or that?" And it's like, "Well, because the Republicans blocked it." And
Yeah.
but they don't know that. And so if so, when you can, so like, but and so you have to tell them that. Like, if
That's the
he
thing.
says it,
Also,
then
like
it's meaningful.
back to the border, I wish Biden would have clarified, hey, we have this bill we were ready to pass where we compromised with Republicans and we gave them everything they wanted, because the general public doesn't know this, that
Yeah,
the Democrats acquiesced to everything that Republicans wanted, and then Trump and his people convinced people to not vote for it and not support it because they were like, well, if this doesn't pass, it'll make Biden look bad and Trump has a better chance of getting elected. So you are deliberately hurting the American people and deliberately not putting laws into place to try to help someone get elected, regardless of which party it is.
yeah,
That's abhorrent. And I wish Biden would have pointed that out, because for the people that are frustrated about the border, even on the
mhm.
left, that is something that is very simple to understand. And it would have taken him 19 seconds to say that. And I am really disappointed that he wouldn't just say that.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I mean, yeah, like, and it shows that just how little he takes that Trump took it seriously as an issue. Like,
Hmm.
if it's really this big crisis that he says it is, then why'd you tell him not to do anything about it? Like, that suggests it's
Yeah.
not that big of a deal, according to Trump. Even though he keeps mentioning it every 5 seconds. I don't know. So
Honest to
let's see.
God.
So if yeah, so for the drinking game questions, though, I guess the keywords for me out of Trump were like no one had ever seen before, and
The
then
likes of
I was
which.
yeah yeah I was surprised there wasn't more Hunter Biden tonight, though. I guess maybe his handlers must have told him that
I think
if you
because
get
he
off
was
on that,
convicted
no
of
one
that.
has any idea.
God forbid, had he not been convicted, then we would never hear the end of it. That's all we would hear.
Oh, if Hunter hadn't been convicted, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. No, that's probably true. Yeah, I mean, that completely punctured that whole delusion. I mean, this idea that Biden is personally controlling, pulling the strings in all these cases, like it is complete garbage. I mean, like the
Mhm.
thing, like Julian Assange just got let off by the DOJ. Like Trump
Mhm.
said that he was going to do that. He claimed he was going to do that in his last days of his presidency. Well, But Biden actually didn't negotiate that. He said the White House said, no, the DOJ handled that themselves. He didn't have any communication with them about it because that's the way the DOJ is supposed to work. You're not supposed to tell the president what you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in.
Yep. I think that will do it for us. We have been yakking long enough. So everybody make sure to follow us on the various platforms that you're at, and also get us over on at Doomscroll Show and on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, just follow me on Instagram. I don't care about it. Twitter, really. Instagram at Olympian Lisa Curry. Yep.
So there it is. And we'll hopefully see some of you new viewers later. So stay in touch with us, and we look forward to it. So good night.